I will
will.
send her my responses
Thank you.
around it.
Can I just ask, you don't live in State Liverpool anymore?
I live in Pretoria now,
You live in
but
Pretoria.
we still have a family home in State Level.
I see.
So I frequently go home to visit the family. Yes.
Okay, you must go to the premiere of the movie.
Yes, yes.
So what do you do in Pretoria?
I work for government. I've been working there since 1994.
Right.
So I serve government as a public servant, as a director of international relations in the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries
Okay.
for the past 3 years.
Right.
Before that, I worked in the immigration services in the Department of Home Affairs.
Right.
So most of my professional life, I've been a public servant, working for government, making a difference in the lives of people
Yes.
in South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah.
I worked in local government all of my life until in public services
Yes.
all of my life, and I think it's probably one of the best jobs in the world.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I mean, I've always worked with children and education and family support, but yes. So I know where you're coming from.
Yes.
You were brought up in State Liverpool. Which school did you go to?
Yeah, I was born, bred, raised in State Level. I attended the Rehoboth Primary School. It later then merged with UCC Primary and became State Level Primary School.
Right.
That's where I finished my high school.
You're matric?
Do it again. Sorry, I studied at Rehoboth Primary.
Yes.
It then later merged with the UCC Primary School and became State Level Primary. Now, what you will know is that for black and colored pupils in the town, there was no high school. There, of course, was a high school for whites,
Yes.
which cater for pupils from sub A to matric,
Yes.
which will be grade 12.
Karel du Toit.
Yes, but for us as black and colored students, once we reach standard 6, that's the end of education in state level. So unless your family could find the means to send you for further studies, you were then forced to go outside the town, either to Port Elizabeth, Uitenhage, or Graaff-Reinet. These were the 3 nearest places. And we went to different schools. There was Cowan High in PE, Lemakaya. There was Galvindale Secondary, it had a boarding school. And then there was Spando in Graaff-Reinet. So that was our experience
Yes.
at the time. Because of that setup, quite a number of pupils from the town never went beyond standard 6 because the parents didn't have the means to send their kids for further education. So quite a number of talent got lost in the process, and the potential of very talented and gifted pupils could not develop any further because of the poverty that we experience in the town.
Yes.
And deprivation as well.
Yes.
That basically is my experience growing up, my educational experience. What then happened in 1994, but prior to that, because the white community was such a small one, to justify the school being opened or keeping it open, they then had to import students from all over the country, white students,
Really?
just to ensure that Karel du Toit justified staying open as a school, but they wouldn't allow us as black and colored students to study there. So we continue to migrate to your nearby towns. The situation changed after 1994 because the democratic government and what it stands for in terms of democracy, in terms of freedom, you know, the school was then opened for everybody in the town. Hence today, black, colored, and white students can study from sub-A to matric, which today is grade 12,
Yes.
and finish their studies. Of course, many of us never had that chance because of the apartheid system at the time.
Yes. 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 Carol Detroit now has a black head teacher, Edwin Billett, who is energetic and quite determined. He has a lot of problems to face in the school. They only managed to get a very, very, very small number of children through matric.
Right.
I think last year it was 3. All of the children at the 2 primary schools are black children as well. I think now 1 or 2 white children are being sent to Carol Detroit, but it is a predominantly black school.
Yes.
It needs a lot of resources, it needs more teachers, but Edwin is in there trying to make a difference without doubt, and he's lovely to work with, you know. Do you know which school, are you telling me then that Johannes Spuchter finished school at grade 6? Because I thought he was at school at the point when he died. His principal, Brian Bishop, wrote an account of the funeral, and in that account he speaks of a principal of the school describing Johannes Spuchter as a clever boy. So you must have been at school. You don't know which one. Which school did your parents manage to send you to school after
Yes.
grade 6? Because you're
After-
obviously educated.
Yes, I had the opportunity to continue my studies at Galvindale Secondary in Port Elizabeth
Right.
because there was a boarding school, and we managed to then continue our studies. Quite a number of students from the Eastern Cape, which had the same experience of them not being allowed to study at the white school in these towns.
Yeah.
That was our experience at the time.
Yes.
Johannes studied at Tom Kasibe.
Yes.
The principal there at the time, I think, was Mr. Michels.
He was Was he Jimmy Michels?
No, not
Because
Jimmy.
Jimmy Michels was a teacher.
Mr.
wasn't he?
Michels Senior.
Ah, I see.
Yes.
Right.
Jimmy was a teacher.
Yes.
The principal was Mr. Michels.
Jimmy's father. No.
Is it not the uncle?
Perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Michels.
Yeah, Mr. Michels was the teacher of Tom Kasibe. He was an excellent headmaster
Right.
and a very prominent community person.
Yes.
Yeah, at the time of this killing of Z and Paki, he was the principal at Tom
So
Kasibe.
he would be the one who spoke.
Yes,
I'll check that.
in
yes.
Voiluetu Township. We know it as Kaba.
Kaba.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, location. Yes.
Okay. And where were you at the time when this happened? You must have been in Port Elizabeth.
No, actually what
You-
happened, that killing of Z and Paki occurred during a holiday
Yes.
in June. So what would happen during holidays, we would come back home and then we would participate in political activities. When we formed the State Level Youth Congress,
Staco.
STACO,
Yeah.
The idea was to raise the consciousness of young people
Yes.
in the town, in the community, and to make them understand what the struggle for freedom is about. Raise their consciousness, but form part of the movement for freedom and democracy
Yes.
in South Africa. The conditions were not very easy. It's a small community. Repression was also very tight, very severe. But we felt we had to do something. Explain to our people what we are fighting for. So the idea was to start with the young people, because they were an easy catalyst to carry our struggles forward there. These were not easy times. In the Eastern Cape, in the Karoo, repression was very severe. The entire Eastern Cape, we will remember at the time, was under siege by the regime. Police were out in full force. Soldiers were out in full force. What they then did in these small towns is that they also mobilized these farmers who formed a kind of commando.
Yes.
So whenever there is trouble, these farmers, these Boers, would be mobilized and become part of the repressive force. And this is what happened on the night that Johannes and Papi was killed. You also had the mobilization of the commando, these Boers, which then reinforced the police force in the town. That's basically, what happened, what obtained then.
So do you think it was a commando who killed Papi? Or... I've been told that a man called Pitinel is the person who actually struck Vumile.
Papi.
Papi. I was
Yes.
so sorry.
Johannes, yes.
Johannes, yes. The person who told me that was Mangalisu Saku. He says that he has subsequently seen this man, I think in a supermarket, not in the State Living, there isn't a supermarket in State Living, but maybe in Mutiny.
Right.
I can't remember, but he says he saw this man and pointed the finger at him and said, "I know who you are." And he says this man ran away. That's as far as I've got. I'm very reluctant to use that information with the children because I don't want them. I don't want anything subterranean, to happen. But Mr. Saku told me that. It isn't my intention to go and track this person down. But what I am very concerned about is that these young people know almost nothing about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And it's something which, like your constitution, seems to me South Africans should be immensely proud of. I know it had faults, I know it had limitations. Mary Burton was on the TRC, and she's spoken to me about it in some depth. We can't find Johannes Spuchter's name on the TRC, but what we do know is that the family were given 30,000 rand, but we can't find any paperwork about that, and we can't find a hearing at the TRC. I know that Vumile and some others protested outside the town hall when the TRC was in session in the town. But Vumile doesn't know any more about it than that. I have a photograph of the protest. It's on the Facebook page.
Right.
You'll see a lot of things on there I'll give you the reference. Do you know what happened? So you went in the town that night.
Yeah, what happened is that this is my recollection.
Yes.
The afternoon there was a protest in the town. The process, if I understand correctly, was to protest the assassination of the Craddock Four.
Yes, I've been told.
Yeah, that is what sparked the march. Now, people then, young activists, started off in Kaba location, which today is Boileto. From there, they moved into the colored community, across the rugby field into the colored township. The numbers then swelled, so the march became bigger. They then went down Bosman Street, which is where,
Still there, Bosman Street, isn't it?
yes, which is where the colored primary school is. Then turned left into Henry James Street. It happened to be that when we were opposite our home, you know, the Joseph family home, we were confronted by the police. What we then did was to sit down. Some of us then tried to negotiate with the police. I remember Mzwandile himself. There was Tofi Utofi. He was also active in the youth. And there was Sipom. They were clearly not interested, the police, to negotiate anything. And then just start firing into the crowd who was seated in the street, in Henry James Street.
Firing tear gas?
Yes,
Yes.
firing tear gas. And then all hell broke loose thereafter. These activist young people had to run for their lives because we never knew what was happening next.
Yes.
And it was then a very difficult and dangerous situation which developed as people ran for cover. Back to Kaba location, back to Golden Valley, but just to be away from the danger that they were facing. Now, when we formed the State Level Youth Congress, we wanted to raise the consciousness of young people, but the community at large. What we did not foresee at the time is that we were going to be confronted in
that
this way,
Yes.
with this kind of violence
Yes.
from the police that were meted out to us. Night then 4, this happened in the afternoon,
Yes.
late afternoon,
Yes.
probably around 4 o'clock. That's when this disruption of the peaceful march happened.
Okay.
So the young activists, the youth went, back to their locations. Now I lived in the colored township, and we knew that there's an uneasy calm on the other side of town. The next morning I was up, and then a lady called Hazel was coming from Kaaba on her way to